Let's get to the penultimate storyteller right now. Put your hands together for Nathan Carson.
My brother was born in a laboratory, which is true. My parents were renting a house that had formerly been a wastewater treatment lab, and he was a home birth. I had been, for many months, looking forward to having a baby sister. When I came home that day, I met my baby brother, Merlin. So not only did I not have a sister, but to add insult to injury, I had a Hebrew name, and he had a wizard name. For about 2 weeks, I wouldn't look at him or speak to him. My parents were very concerned. Then my older cousins came to visit, and Shayla picked up Merlin, and he peed all over her, and then I decided having a baby brother was pretty cool, actually. Now, I was born bald and quiet. Merlin was born with a full black head of hair and screaming. My dad referred to him as the creep from the deep who should be asleep, not making a peep. When Merlin was old enough to speak and understand our words, my dad would say, "The police brought you here and they will come take you away." Now, brothers fight, and I can definitely say I never once hit Merlin, but there are other ways to torment your younger brother. I remember being on the goat farm, left to babysit him, and I would feign demonic possession. I would roll my eyes back in my head, and I would say, "Die, Merlin Carson." And then I'd pretend to snap out of it, and I'd say, "Listen, he's coming back. I can't control him. You're going to have to get a knife and kill me." And then I'd say, "Die, Merlin Carson." And he'd be standing there holding a butcher knife in the kitchen crying because he didn't want to kill his older brother. Now, there were good sides, of course. When we were a little older, I took him to see Nirvana on their first tours, and there were perks. I taught him to play guitar when he was 12, and by the time he was 13, he was a better guitar player than me. Around that same time, I gave him his first hit of weed, and now I get my weed from him. In junior high, he got, aside from guitar, he was also very much into video games. And when the Nintendo semifinals came around, he competed, and he did very well. And all of a sudden, he's one of the 3 boys on stage competing for the grand championship, which was the prize was a 1991 Chevy Malibu and a trip to Florida to compete for the world title. And of course, the kid who won first place was this pasty kid who hadn't seen sunlight in months. Merlin got 3rd place and won a hat. And I recall taking Merlin to the Melody Ballroom in '92 to see a heavy metal band called Gwar, and Merlin's hat got swept off of his head and onto the stage. And I stayed late after the show, and I went to find one of the roadies, and I said, "Listen, I got to get my brother's hat off stage." And the roadie took a look at me, and he said, "Get lost, kid." And I'm like, "Look, that's my younger brother's Nintendo semifinals hat." So he took pity on us, and he found it, and he slogged through the muck and the fake blood and the fake semen and found the hat. It was permanently purple, but he got it back. Merlin progressed from video games to computers. In high school, he got really interested in computers, and as a senior in high school, started working at a semiconductor company. By the time he was 18, he was a software engineer with a salary, flying to South Korea to program robots and living in a punk house for $100 a month rent. And he had more money than any of us, and we were very impressed. We all ended up moving from Corvallis up to Portland around '97. He got a really nice place in Selwood to start out. And this brings me to the first of 2 quotes. When I think about my sensitive Aquarian brother, he lived in this beautiful house in Selwood. And I say, "Merlin, you have brand new carpet and hardwood floors. Why do you wear slippers in the house?" And he said, "The carpet hurts my feet." The other quote from around the same time, we were visiting my family at the farm and watching a holiday movie, and it was Mouse Hunt or Stuart Little, something. There's this cartoon mouse that's fighting crime, foiling capers, setting traps for burglars, flying in a toy airplane. And in the end of this film, this mouse is rewarded for his heroism. He's given a little chef hat and a job working on the assembly line in a cheese factory. And my brother slams his fist on the floor, And he says, they would never give a mouse a job in a cheese factory. That's unsanitary. And I'm just thinking, you just suspended your belief while this mouse fought crime. But you can't believe that he could work in a cheese factory. So he eventually was gentrified out of Selwood and got a place on a dead-end street in industrial southeast off Powell by the railroad tracks, and he built a recording studio called War Axe Studio, where he recorded heavy metal bands in his basement. And about 7 years ago, his house was broken into, and I said, you know, you really need to get a dog. And he slacked on that, and it didn't happen, and his house was broken into a second time. And by then he had installed some cameras, and I was with him watching the footage and seeing this guy in sunglasses with a gun in his hand walking through my brother's house. And my brother's crying, really upset. I took him that week to pick out a Rottweiler puppy, which he named Zool, to go with his cat Zila. He's never been robbed again or had a problem. However, he did find out last month that after 15 years living there, his house is going to be torn down July 1st. So if you know of anyone that has a room for rent for a really cool guy who's a straight-A student with a dog and a geriatric cat, please let me know, because my brother Merlin is the best person I know, and I love him very much.